Welcome back to Tarvold's Perspective Metroid Edition. I'm here to break down my thoughts on the next game in the Metroid series and slap it into a tier list for that sweet hit of hot take dopamine. And oh baby, do we have a real interesting game to get into. I know I said I'd do the next 4 games in one video, but life keeps getting in the way. So I'm going to do these game by game from now on so I can hopefully get some of that content to you guys a lot faster. And next up, it's time to talk about Metroid Prime Hunters. Metroid Prime Hunters, a multiplayer arena-based shooter made for the DS to push its, at the time, revolutionary online service. My only experience with this game before now was the first Hunt demo, which I still hang on to. And when I played this back in the day, I tried it for a bit and went, yeah, no. So I never really got the full multiplayer experience, and sadly, probably never will. Unfortunately, because of that, this breakdown will solely be focused on the single player campaign. Truth be told, I didn't even own a DS, or for that matter, a Wii, and only took the dive into those game catalogs after jumping back on board with the 3DS and the Wii U. I have somewhat of a blind spot for the Wii DS era, so I'm going into these next few titles with no nostalgia or bias whatsoever. This script was particularly hard for me to write, but not because I was having trouble finding what to say, but because this game turned my left hand into an unusable claw. I can't stress this enough. Playing this game is just pain. You play this by holding the entire DS with your left hand and aiming with the stylus in your right hand. It actually controls really well, with the aiming being very responsive and decently accurate. But it's just fucking painful. After about an hour, I gotta stop. It works, but it hurts. It aims, but it pains. Play some more and be sore. It flowies, but it owies. Okay, that last one didn't make any sense, but shut up, my hand is broken. You wanna write this? It's like, if you wanna wake up quickly in the morning, you could either set an alarm or have someone come in and aggressively twist your nipples raw. One of these probably works a lot better at waking you up and getting you out of bed quickly. But is the pain really worth the efficiency? A couple of you out there might say yes.
And you two motherfuckers need Jesus.
Seriously though, this is by far the most noteworthy thing about Hunters, the control scheme. You control movement with the D-pad, and firing your arm cannon is done by hitting the L button. So your left hand has to simultaneously hold the entire system up and have it be firm enough so that your stylus use doesn't move the thing too much, all the while moving and strafing Samus around and mashing the fire button or charging your beam while your right hand is controlling your aim. Holding down the fire button to charge also has to shoot out 4 rapid shots first, and only then will the charge beam start. Not only that, but the entire goddamn screen shakes aggressively while you hold the charge, because we needed to make this even more uncomfortable to the senses, I guess. Jumping is mapped to, get this, double tapping the screen. Again, it works, but it's just annoying. And while I did just say it works, I found sometimes I don't double click fast enough and end up sending myself careening off of a platform, forcing me to do an entire platforming section again. The jump is interesting in this game though. It's not so much a jump and more of a jetpack boost. So you can do some Diddy Kong dips and fall off a ledge and jump mid-fall to get a bit more distance. I don't know if this was intentional or not, but it's kind of fun, and it can save you if you screw up. Activating morph ball and switching weapons and visors is handled by the bottom touchscreen. It's mostly fine, but using the boost ball is done by swiping on the screen. Not exactly how I'd want to be swiping on Samus, but here we are. And much like my actual success would be if I tried doing this, the boost ball rarely works out. I find I have to make huge, deliberate gestures to get this to activate. Doesn't really feel intuitive at all. And even when it does work, it's barely much of a boost. And yeah, the scan visor's back, but it's really not used much, so it didn't bother me this time around. For recording this footage, I ended up using the Wii U emulated version, which was a bit more comfortable than using the DS itself, admittedly. I'd plop a pillow down on my lap and rest the Wii U gamepad there. Having the top screen be stationary and not tied to the bottom screen where I'm pushing the stylus against was pretty nice, since I was able to properly focus on it. So if you want to take a shot at this game for the first time, I'd actually suggest the Wii U version version while it's still up. Though I will say, many times using this setup, the gamepad will get pushed into the pillow on my lap since I had to press down on it slightly with the stylus. And this would hit the ZR or ZL buttons and pop the menu screen up. Annoying, but I'll admit it's more of a me-you problem. The morph ball as a whole just feels off. Bomb jumping is insanely frustrating because your ball never stops friggin' moving. It's especially bad if you need to land on a platform higher than you because you need to start your momentum before the bombs go off. But the timing on these is so weird and your ball accelerates so fast. I kept moving too far away from it and missing the explosion, or moving too late and not making any horizontal movement while airborne. You just kind of drift around. It's really hard to explain with words, honestly. You just gotta feel it for yourself. There is one great thing about the morph ball I noticed though, and I will give credit where it's due. When you're close to an enemy and you drop a bomb, it instantly explodes rather than taking the 2 seconds to blow up. Gives the morph ball kind of a melee attack range feel to it. Loved this for her. Okay, with all the talk about controls out of the way, let's get into the story of Hunters. The game begins with a strange message being broadcast across the galaxy stating,
"The secret to ultimate power lies in the Limbic cluster."
This being a region of space outside of the Galactic Federation's jurisdiction. And yet, despite that, they still get Samus to go there to investigate. Kinda defeats the whole outside their jurisdiction part, doesn't it? Whatever. Samus heads to the Olympic Cluster, which is a series of planets containing 8 octoliths, which are needed to unlock said power. She's not alone, however, as the titular? As the titular Hunters also show up, since they received the same message and are after this power as well. These guys are designed well, but were clearly made for multiplayer. They're put into the campaign as obstacles to encounter through the levels, which serve as mini boss fights, each using a different weapon, and interestingly enough, each having a different form of morph ball too, which I was admittedly impressed by. Kinda makes them feel like they're on somewhat equal footing with Samus. They don't really say anything, you just lock eyes and start blasting. Once they're defeated, they don't die, they just piss off until the next time you meet. This never happened to me on my playthrough, but apparently if you ever lose a fight to them, they can actually take one of the octoliths you've already found and force you to hunt them back down to get it back. Because the name of the game is Hunters, and Samus is supposedly a bounty hunter, so this is like the first time that's ever really felt true. Thing is though, most of the time when I would see them, I would hear the music start bumping, I'd see them approaching me, and oh, yeah, they're dead. They go down really, really fast. It feels totally unfair.
It was like pistol whipping a blind kid.
Each of their respective beam weapons Samus can acquire as well, but not in the way that you might think, you know, by actually defeating them. No, instead they are tucked away in the various planets, which now that I'm actually saying it out loud should actually be how you expect to find power-ups in a Metroid game. My hand is broken! But that's the thing, those beam weapons are it. There are no new abilities to acquire in this game at all. The only things you collect are missile tanks, E-tanks, and UA tanks, which stands for Universal Ammo. Because of course, they brought back the best feature from Echoes, beam ammo. Though I will say, they give you a ton in this game, and I basically never ran out or even came close. Especially after picking up a few UA packs. That, and it's called Universal Ammo since the ammo works for all beam types. So that's kinda cool. But back to my original point, there is nothing else to collect. Just beams, expansions, and octoliths, which do nothing and are essentially the keys to the final boss, much like the Chozo artifacts and Sky Temple keys. Everyone's fave, I know. It really kills the sense of growth that was present in the previous titles, especially since the beam's main function in this game is solely to open locks and doors. Sure, you can use them against the hunters when you encounter them, but the power beam and missiles melt them in seconds, so you're really never incentivized to do so. No suits, no mobility upgrades, nada. It's really stagnant. I'm gonna chalk this up to the game being meant for multiplayer first and the campaign second, but it doesn't make this suck any less. I'll say this, it's kind of interesting that for once, the Samus you take control of at the start of the game is actually fully powered. But in execution, this kind of highlights why those weak-ass excuses to remove everything were important. Speaking of stagnant, the bosses in this game, oh good God. To get the 8 octoliths, you need to fight the same 2 bosses 4 different times each, and every time they get progressively more infuriating. They have no character or cool factor at all. It's just this penis-ass tower and this tit-ass ball. Each time you fight them, they have some new attack, which in reality is just a new way to extend their period of time where you can't damage them whatsoever. This is so frustrating. In order to even lower their health, you need to get them to a vulnerable state, which requires you to break a ton of different points while simultaneously dodging lasers, projectiles, and keeping your aim on point. This is Hunters at its peak pain. These fights can last a while, and trying to stay alive while fighting through the agony in my hands was brutal. After you take them down and grab the Octolith, you're always met with an escape sequence to get back to your ship. Typically these aren't that difficult, and you encounter these guardian robots which you need to kill to progress. They're kind of fun to chase down and kill, but the weirdest thing happens when you kill them. Asama's ghost pops out, and not only a ghost, but a ghost wearing her armor? Fucking what? I'm sure you can sense the tone. I'm not the biggest fan of this one, if that wasn't obvious. I did, however, really enjoy the music and the atmosphere of the different planets. The music sounds very different from the typical 2D Metroid melodic tunes, but also doesn't really sound like the Prime soundtracks either. I can't really describe it other than it sounds like early PC first-person shooter games. I say this as someone who has barely played any early PC first-person shooter games, but in my head, I believe that their music sounded a lot like this. No, I did not do any research for this section, and I will not be taking questions or criticism. The planets and environments are decent, nothing super special though. Fire, ice, temple, tech, your staples of any game trying to diversify its set pieces really. Puzzles are okay, but again, nothing really mind-blowing. I did get lost once for quite a while due to not noticing an orange door on my map, because the entire goddamn map is orange! You see the door? You see it? You do? I'm proud of you. That was upsetting, but dare I say it, I was immersed. Yeah, I'm gonna use that word. I think it's a combination of the gritty DS graphics, the vibe of the music, and the harshness of the sound effects that really did make me feel like I was playing something truly unique. I'm not saying it was a great Metroid experience, but it certainly was something I've never quite seen before. I mean, this was a fully functioning 3D first-person shooter on a handheld. That was a big deal upon this game's release. Has it aged very well? No, but I so do wish I could try out the multiplayer to have that experience and see if it does add a substantial amount of value to the entire package. Maybe one day, who knows. All right, let's wrap this up. After finally getting all 8 Octoliths, we can enter the final area, the Oubliette? The Oubliette, yeah. Which aside from a single hallway, is just the final boss, Goria. Goria was a being who in a long past war became much too powerful to kill as it slaughtered the Olympics. Eventually it was sealed up in something called the Seal Sphere, which traps Goria in the Infinity Void. I didn't pay much attention to the story during the game, so this is what Wiki tells me. It turns out the voice we heard traveling across the galaxy was none other than... Oh, no, not that, but equally stupid. It was Goria, trying to lure the hunters to free it from its prison. So all of them show up to collect this ultimate power and get immediately wrecked. The thing that I don't understand here is that Samus can read all these scans telling her the history of the Olympics, why they sealed up Goria, and how it would be a terrible idea to free it. But she just does it anyway? I must have missed something there, but without doing so, we wouldn't have the final boss battle. The Goria fight is by far the most interesting in the game, and it involves using your different beams during different phases of the fight. This is done better than Metroid Prime though, I feel, since the beams have different properties that make using them properly more difficult. Not only that, but Goria uses the opposing beam against you during these phases. It can even pick you up with its tentacles and start whipping you around. That got a good whoa out of me the first time it happened. I eventually took down Goria, but I got kind of a shitty ending. Apparently, to get the good ending, you need to activate the 6 colored tiles in the arena with Goria in the correct order, then defeat it. Not unlike another final boss for a game I plan on covering one day. If you accomplish this, you go into phase 2 of the fight, which I'm not gonna lie, is piss easy. Grab the Omega Cannon and just shred this thing in no time. Boom. Quest complete. Credits roll, and we get some cool cinematics. I forgot to mention this earlier, but the cutscenes in this game are crazy good for the DS. They sometimes show multiple scenes going on both screens, or meld them together in a large vertical one, sometimes in a seamless transition. I will say I had a bit of a gripe with this. I wanted to watch them both. When 2 different perspectives were showing, I couldn't reasonably see what was going on both screens. Minor nitpick though, because this was impressive. I don't really have that much else to say about the game really. I played it, I beat it, and I don't really ever feel the need to do it again. If there is ever a time in my life where I can reasonably play some local multiplayer, I am so game. But I don't realistically see that happening. So I need to judge Hunters based solely on the campaign. And it blows. It has some value, but it's really not that fun. But at least it's short. So I'm putting this in the middle of the C tier. Thanks again for watching, and apologies for the delay on this one. I'm chopping these up though in an effort to get these out much faster, rather than taking on multiple full games at once. So hopefully you'll be seeing these more frequently from me. Life is hard, yo. For those of you who don't know, I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday over at twitch.tv/Tarvold'sQuest. So definitely head over there and drop a follow to know when I go live. And if you ever miss a stream, I have a second channel here on YouTube called Tarvold's Quest VODs, where you can catch up on any playthrough that I've done so far. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one when I cover Metroid Prime 3 Corruption.